Hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining our on-demand service on this kick-off weekend. Let me ask you one question. Have you ever had a crisis in your life? I wish we had anyone who could answer no, but it is impossible because the crisis is a part of our human life. We all face various types of crisis one way or the other in our lives at a personal level or communal level. It could be emotional crisis, financial crisis, or situational crisis, or it can be natural disaster, global warming, or the global pandemic. The important question we must ask to ourselves would be how we can cope with it and what we can learn from it and how we can grow out of it. It had been unprecedented years and uncharted territories for a couple of years since our life turned upside down overnight in March 2020 due to the global pandemic. So what have you learned from it as we went through it? How have we grown together as a community? As we are kicking off our new ministry season this weekend, Pastor Chris will begin our new sermon series. I cannot wait for what God will teach us today through the message. Let us open our worship with our praise of God as our band leads us.
You've been walking the same old road for miles and miles. If you've been hearing the same old voice tell the same old lies, if you're trying to fill the same old holes inside, there's a better life. There's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker.
If you need freedom, saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you
Got chains, he's a chain breaker. We've all searched for the light of day and the dead of night. We've all found ourselves worn out from the same old fight. We've all run to things we know just ain't right. When there's a better life, oh, there's a better life. If you got pain, he's a pain taker. If you feel lost, he's a way maker.
If you need freedom or saving, he's a prison shaking savior. If you
Got chains, he's a chain breaker. If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify.
If you believe it, if you receive it, if you can feel it, somebody testify, testify. If you believe it, if you receive it,
If you can feel it,
somebody testify.
God pain, he's a pain taker. spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. No shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me.
Thank you so much for choosing to worship with us today in our pre-recorded on-demand service on this kickoff weekend as we begin the new season with great hope in God. If it's your first time to joining us, please know that you are so important for us and you are welcome here as you are. And let us know you are here by using our online connect card at haddonfieldemc.org/now so that we can have a chance to know about you better. During last week, it was so exciting to see that children and students went back to school for their new semester. And we want to bless every child and student with the blessing of the backpacks this Sunday on September 11th. All ages of children and youth students are invited to bring their backpacks or their school supplies at our 9 o'clock or 10:30 service. Our community will pray for you and give you the blessing of backpack tags as a reminder that you are loved, you are not alone, and God is with you each and every day. If you are far away from us or if you are unavailable, please pray for the children in your life and beyond for their new school year. I want to highlight the ministries will resume the regular schedule in small group ministries or children's ministry or student ministry this weekend. We host a barbecue party for the family at 1 o'clock and the student kickoff event at 5 o'clock. You can find more information and schedules about the ministry at haddonfieldemc.org/now. Did you know that nearly 35 residents in Camden County, New Jersey are experiencing food insecurity? We are working with the Cherry Food Pantry to bring food security in Camden County and around surrounded area. And I invite you to join this mission by dropping off the non-perishable food items anytime in the church breezeway. You can pick up reusable grocery bag with the shopping list for your food donation on our kickoff Sunday at the Welcome Center. I want to express my deep gratitude for being our partner in ministry throughout the years, and I encourage you to continue to do by giving today. I know your giving comes with your big heart for God, whether it's small or big. And our giving is essential to continue our ministries, to share God's love and God's hope in and beyond our community. And the easiest ways to give is our online giving at haddonfieldemc.org/give. You can give one time as a guest, or you can set up recurring of your regular offerings as well. God is the author of life, and as we are freely received, let us freely give to God and others to be the sign of hope. So before we invite Pastor Chris to share his message today, shall we go to God in prayer to center ourselves? Loving and gracious God, thank you so much for the gift of your word prepared for us today. Let today's scripture be alive in our heart and in our lives as we receive your word prepared for us today. We pray in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
It's September. Kids are going back to school. But after 2 years of a pandemic, we've all learned something about hardship. By now, everyone has heard of post-traumatic stress. But have you heard of post-traumatic growth? It is now understood that people can experience significant personal and spiritual growth after experiencing a crisis or hardship. Be ready to take notes as together we explore when crisis takes us back to school.
So picture this. You're living your life, going along with your regular routines, running from this thing to that thing like you always do with your usual rhythms. And then, just like that, something unexpected happens and everything changes. It could be a phone call, a news story, an accident, but in just a moment, the blink of an eye, a crisis can change everything. And when it does, that which was regular, normal, usual is now all of the sudden halted and turned upside down. We have to react, adjust, and ultimately find some kind of a new normal, a new rhythm. That's exactly what happened on September 11th, 2001. I remember it was a beautifully blue Tuesday morning. And all of a sudden, at 8:46 a.m., an airplane crashed into the northern tower of the World Trade Center. And everything changed. That's exactly what happened on March 20th, 2020. For those of us living in New Jersey, the governor of our state gave a press conference and ordered everyone to shelter in place and asking people to stay off the roads, forcing us to figure out how to work virtually, how to do school virtually, and now somehow live socially distanced lives. This is exactly what happens when the doctor gives a grim diagnosis, or when a loved one dies, or when something unplanned or unexpected suddenly thrusts us into a crisis. Everything changes. And when everything changes, we begin to ask questions. Why is this happening? Why is this happening to me? And what am I supposed to do now? And in time, as we adjust and we begin to reevaluate things, how they used to be, the old normal, we begin to ask more questions. Like, why was I so focused on my career? Why didn't I spend more time with my family? Why was I so busy all the time? Why couldn't I have just forgiven this person? Why couldn't we have just worked things out? What was the point of it all? This is precisely what has occurred over the last 2 years around the globe. And now people everywhere are reevaluating their lives, their priorities, their schedules, their commitments. They're reevaluating where they live, where they work, how much time they spend with family, and how they even spend money. This reevaluation has led to a renegotiation. And people have left jobs in record numbers. People have moved and bought and sold homes in record numbers. There is a labor shortage, and volunteer and civic organizations, including churches, are struggling because people and volunteers haven't returned. Businesses are struggling because servers and waiters haven't returned. Factories and warehouses are struggling because warehouse workers and factory workers haven't returned. There's been a change. I believe people around the world, once the world stopped in the early phase of the pandemic, just like in any crisis, have asked themselves the question, what is the point? Do I really need to get back to that way of life, to that level of busyness, to that amount of work, to that type of stress? In a crisis, we renegotiate the balance between freedom and security in our lives. Because crisis actually reveals that security is only ever an illusion. We're almost never as secure as we think we are. I remember feeling so incredibly unsafe and insecure on September 2nd, 2001. And in the early days of the pandemic, being afraid to leave my home because feeling there was no security from getting sick and something happening to my family. When we realize that we're not as secure as we think we were, we then begin to take back freedom for ourselves. Freedom to do more of what we want. Freedom to spend more time with the people that we want to spend. Freedom to have more autonomy over our own lives or over our own work. And we renegotiate a better work-life balance. But the problem is, as I'm already seeing around us, is that this doesn't always last. Inevitably, those of us who slowed down eventually get busier and busier. Those of us who cleaned out the clutter slowly accumulate more and more. When the crisis seems to resolve, or at least we find a new normal, we can forget some of the important lessons that we learn in the middle of a pandemic. And that's why today I'm beginning this new sermon series, When Crisis Takes Us Back to School. Because crisis can be difficult, it can be stressful, it can be traumatic, but it also can teach us important things about ourselves, about the world, and about God. One of my favorite books in the Bible, it's in the Hebrew Scriptures. It's a book called Ecclesiastes. I studied it in college with my Hebrew professor. He and I took a semester. We met in the library. We read through this book in Hebrew. It was one of his favorite books, and he helped me to fall in love with it. It's not preached from often. It's not even taught in churches much. And I think it's confusing for people. And in some cases, people think it's a little bit of a downer. But for the next couple weeks, I want to talk about a book in Hebrew, which is titled Kohelet. Now, the name Kohelet literally means orator or speaker or teacher. And the Kohelet, the teacher, has a lot of wisdom, but we have to be ready to take it on. In the book Kohelet, he makes all kinds of observations trying to make sense of life, just like we're all trying to make sense of life right now, both by analyzing crisis and also by experimenting with success and excess. But at first glance, the assessment of the teacher, of the Kohelet, seems pretty bleak. Listen to verse 2. I'll read a couple verses. Vanity of vanities, says the teacher. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. What do people gain from all of the toil at which they toil under the sun? See what I mean? The wise teacher of this book asks the same question. What is the point of everything? Why do people run around so much? Why are people working so much? That, I think, is what the world's labor market is asking itself and has been for the last couple of years. But if you go on and especially look at verse 2, the observation of the teacher is this Hebrew word hevel. In Hebrew, verse 2 says, Havel Havelim Amar Kohelet, Havel Havelim Veko Hevel. You may have heard Havel, Havelim. The word hevel appears 5 times in that sentence. The New Revised Standard Version of the Bible translates hevel as vanity. As I read it, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. The JPS, which is the Jewish Publication Society translation, translates hevel as futility, which is perhaps a little more accurate. Utter futility, says the teacher. Utter futility, all is futile, according to the JPS. But according to my professor and my own understanding, neither of these translations is completely accurate. If we really want to get wisdom from this book, we must understand the meaning of the text more accurately. Because I have to say that when you read that second verse, there is a negative connotation to the word vanity. So when Kohelet says, vanity of vanity, all is vanity, I feel like he's saying it's all for nothing, a big waste of time. Everything is useless. But if we translate it that way, we're really missing the point. And we don't understand what the text has to say. The Hebrew word hevel literally means mist or smoke, the same word for both English words. So hear it in this word. Mist upon mist, all is but mist. Kohelet is saying that just like mist or smoke, which you can see, but you can't control it, you can't tame it, and you can't even predict how it's going to flow, life can't be fully controlled, understood, or predicted. Life doesn't always make sense, and life rarely goes exactly as we want it to. But it's not useless, it's just mysterious. Listen to the next part of chapter 1, verse 4. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. The sun rises and the sun goes down and hurries to the place where it rises. The wind blows to the south and goes around the north. Round and round goes the wind, and on its circuits the wind returns. All streams run to the sea, but the sea is not full. To the place where the streams flow, where they continue to flow. All things are wearisome. more than one can express. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. What has been is what will be, and what has been done is what will be done. There is nothing new under the sun. Is there a thing of which it is said, see, this is new, it has already been? In the ages before us, the people of long ago are not remembered, nor will there be any remembrance of people yet to come by those who come after them. What Kohelet is saying in this passage is that the world, what we know, the world has literally been spinning for billions of years, or millions of years at least. The sun always rises in the east and always sets in the west every 24 hours. The water cycles constantly, water evaporates, it rains, it flows from rivers into streams in the ocean, and then it repeats this cycle over and over. It has always been repeating this cycle. It will always repeat this cycle. And yet our life, my life and your life, is just a flash in the pan. We get such a short period of time on this earth. And yet in the context of all of time, we are so small and we are so insignificant. And yet to us, our problems seem so huge and so overwhelming. Our crises seem to us like unique, once in a lifetime occurrences, and we think that our troubles are extraordinary. But Kohelet observes that our problems are not unique. They're not new. The things we wrestle with in our society today have been wrestled with before. Our worries aren't really as huge in the grand scheme of things as we think they are. So what's the point in killing ourselves, in working so hard, running around so much, stressing out so much, holding grudges with people, fighting? Life is unpredictable and mysterious. Enjoy it while you have the gift. Enjoy the people that you have while you have them. Our efforts to control our schedules, to control our outcomes, are vain because life is missed. We can't control it or predict it. So the only thing we have to do is to be fully present in every moment, to enjoy each moment. Isn't that what mindfulness teaches us? Isn't that what meditation teaches us? Isn't that what prayer teaches us? To be present now. Isn't that one thing that we learned about ourselves in the pandemic, is that we were not fully present to ourselves, to our jobs, to our families, to our lives in 2019. And so when things slowed down, we began to rediscover ourselves and our homes and hobbies. I want to move forward to chapter 2, Ecclesiastes 2, verse 15 to 26. Then I said to myself, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said to myself that this is also vanity, for there is no enduring remembrance of the wise or of fools, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How can the wise die just like the fools? So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a chasing after the wind. I hated all my toil in which I had toiled under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to those who come after me. And who knows whether they will be wise or foolish, yet they will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned and gave my heart up to despair concerning all the toil of my labors under the sun. Because sometimes one who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave all to be enjoyed by another who did not toil for it. This is also a vanity and a great evil. What do mortals get from all their toil and strain with which they toil under the sun? For all their days are full of pain, and their work is a vexation. Even At night their minds do not rest. This is also vanity. There is nothing better for mortals than to eat and to drink, and to find enjoyment in their toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For to the one who pleases him, God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy. But to the sinner, he gives the work of gathering and heaping, only to give to the one who pleases God. This also is vanity and chasing after the wind. Did you catch some of that? Talks about the mind not resting at night, and the person who works and works and works and then gets sick and dies, and the person who inherits their money didn't deserve it because they didn't work for it. And maybe they're not wise stewards, and maybe they make foolish decisions. Boy, what a wasted time of this person that they worked so hard and then they didn't get to enjoy their stuff. You know, there are two stories in the Gospels that jump out as we read this part of Kohelet or Ecclesiastes. One, Jesus tells the story of a rich man who had a huge crop, and he decided to tear down all of his barns and to build a new barn. And he said, you know what? I don't have to work anymore. I'm going to say to myself, kick back, enjoy life, and we're set for the rest of our lives. And then God says, you fool, this very night your life is demanded of you. The point of Jesus' story is like Kohelet. Life is unforeseeable and unpredictable. And the point of Jesus there is that this person was not generous towards other people, didn't share what he had, was really only focused on himself. But Kohelet is pointing to us to be faithful to God, to be faithful to the people we have, to the moment that we have, to the lives that we have. Because if you read through the 12 chapters of this book, what you will see over and over again is that deferring happiness is missing the point. What's the point? To experience God, be present to God, love God, receive God's love in every moment, in every season of your life. Because honestly, we don't know if there won't be another crisis tomorrow. And I don't say that to be pessimistic or to be dooming, but the point of this book is it's really just missed. We can't predict. We can't control. We can't foresee. Jesus says, don't store up for yourselves treasures on earth. Store up treasures in heaven where it won't be taken, where it won't be stolen, where it can't break down. At the end of this last verse that I read, there is a beautiful sentence. Again, the term in Hebrew is not fully accurately translated in English. It says, this also is a vanity and a chasing after wind. And I remember my professor, Fernand Fiesel, of whom I have preached before. Remember, he said, it doesn't mean chasing after the wind. Or ut comes from the word ra'ah, which means to shepherd. And he said what it really means is it's shepherding the spirit. Have you ever tried to shepherd anything? You put it in a pen. And he says what it's really saying is you might as well try to pen in the wind or God's spirit. I love that translation because I really think that's my problem, is that I try and tell God how my life is going to be, what I want to do, and how things are going to be. And I think we as a society, we love to control things. We love to plan things out. And Proverbs says that the human mind makes plans, but God guides our footsteps. Back in either the first or the second week of the pandemic, I remember preaching in a very empty building to an iPhone. And I remember saying, not to you, but to myself, pay attention. We are going to learn things about ourselves. Write it down. Put it in a journal. And I kept coming back to that thought over and over again throughout the last 2 years. What am I learning? What are we learning about ourselves? And here's the big learning. I try to pen in the Spirit. I try to pen in God. I try to shepherd the wind. I don't know where God is going to lead me. I don't know what will happen, what won't happen, but this is what I do know. God's love for me never changes. God's call for me to be faithful to God never changes. The opportunity to experience God's joy in the present moment, even in the midst of crisis and chaos, never changes. There have been some really hard times over the last couple of years. In my life, in your life, in our lives. And there have been some incredibly blessed moments that have reminded me something that it'd be easy to forget. In crisis, there can be joy. In weeping, there can be laughter. In fear, there can be beauty. What lessons have you learned? How has God shown up in the moments when the wind escaped your pen? And how can we continue to live this out in our life? Friends, I am grateful that you have joined us for this service. Join us again. Share this service. Check out our sermon notes, which is a way that you can reflect on this sermon on our webpage, haddonfieldumc.org. And keep coming back. We have 2 more weeks in which we're going to learn about how when crisis takes us back to school. Next week, we're going to look at how important rhythm is to our lives. We need a rhythm. I hope to see you again in person or virtually. And as we leave this worship service virtually, may we be faithful to God and seek to be the Church of Jesus Christ in a hurting world that needs to know that joy, love, and peace do not need to be deferred. They are God's gifts for today. Let's go in peace.
He's changing.